the only sports podcast power rankings for the divisional round. Casino. Here it is. And today's theme is going to the movies because I like going to the movies. As you know, it was the end of the year, so I was putting together my best movies of the year list. So I thought I would incorporate that into this list. And we start first with your number 8. And again, we're just ranking the final 8 teams
Final countdown.
in the divisional round. And to
3 seconds.
nobody's yeah, to nobody's shock, Casino's number 8 team is the Houston Texans.
Yeah, they're going to upset some people. They're going to upset some people. Everybody's going to be shocked, just like this is when this happens.
This is why we do this on Tuesday, because if we're doing it on Thursday, you kind of already know what games we're picking and how we feel about these teams. So it's always funny to now try to justify why we think these teams are good.
No. This is where this team is. This is where this team fits. They are the 8th best team left in the playoffs.
AKA they're the worst team left in the playoffs.
That is correct. That doesn't mean they are still the 8th best team in
you know what? If we want to expand it, they're the 8th best team out of 32.
Yeah,
so top 8 out of 32.
Yeah, and if you're in the top 8, you have a chance against anybody. So I'm picking. Okay, they're there for a reason. We know why they're there. They're the most inconsistent team that's left, and that's where they're at. But you know what? When they play good, they can play good. So they're going to play good against the Chiefs. Let me have this one.
Well, as if no shock to anyone else, my number 8 team is the Houston Texans, and my number 8th best movie of the year. Not to brag to anybody, but I go to the movies a lot. Casino knows this.
Yeah. I don't remember the last time I went to the movie.
Yeah, I go all the time. Now, I will say 2024 was a down year for me going to the movies. I did not go to the movies as much as I would like to have, and that just has to do with kids and my work schedule. But
you still went over 500 times.
But I still went a good amount of times. So this is just from the movies I have seen. The movies I have not seen that I would still like to see. Oh, if I can pull up that list right here. I made a top 8 list. The movies I have not seen that will maybe make this list are The Substance, Conclave, Nosferatu, His Three Daughters, Sing Sing, Honora, Rebel Ridge, Small Things Like These, The Brutalist. Those are the movies I'm going to try to watch.
None of those are Marvel movies, so people don't care.
Yeah. I'll also I don't think a Marvel movie is on this list. I liked Wolverine and Deadpool. It probably would have been like 9, but we're only doing top 8.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was funny.
So, but my number 8, and this is the way it's going to work. I'm just going to talk about the movies. Casino's going to talk about the teams because our lists are basically identical. But the movie Furiosa Mad Max Saga is my number 8 pick for my favorite movie of the year. I thought it had one really great sequence that reminded me of Fury Road, which is when Anna Taylor-Joy's Furiosa is riding the semi, and they're being attacked by like scavengers, and there's pirates out of the sky, and there's little people like shooting cannons and stuff like that. That scene was amazing and held up to basically everything in the first Mad Max Fury Road. I thought this one was also much more story driven than obviously the first one, which was just one giant chase. So I didn't like this one as much as Mad Max Fury Road, but that's because I think Mad Max Fury Road is like a perfect movie. This movie was a sequel to a perfect movie, which it was still good. It was just not on the same level. And again, I miss Tom Hardy in this. And I also think Anna Taylor-Joy was good, but I don't think she brought the same intensity and like kind of like mystery that Charlize Theron did. So great ending though. Great ending, really messed up. I like those kind of endings where you're like, dear God. But next up, Casino, your number 7 is the Washington Commanders. Why do you think they're the number 7 best team in this playoffs?
Because they still have a rookie quarterback. He might be MVP or rookie of the year, but
He will be. Yeah.
he's still a rookie. He's still a rookie, and this team has been on the fringe of losing. Like I said, 7 different games they've won in the last 6 seconds. So they couldn't easily have not have made the playoffs. But good teams find ways to win. That's why they're sitting here in the top 8, and they're sitting number 7 for me because I do think if you put them ahead with the Texans, the Texans could or Washington could beat them, but the Texans could beat them, just like the Texans could beat any one of these teams. Just saying. Um, but yeah, Washington's going to sit there mainly because they have a rookie quarterback and they've squeaked out some games right at the end of the season, or right at the end of every game.
I think we have 2 differences on this list, and this is one of them. I actually put the Rams as my number 7 team, and my number 7 favorite movie of the year is The Killer on
Never heard of it.
Netflix. It's on Netflix, directed by David Fincher, starring Michael Fassbender. This is, of all the movies I've seen this year, this has the best act 1, the
This is
best.
number 7.
Yes, the best first 20 minutes of a movie you're gonna see all year, which is Michael Fassbender's character is a hired assassin, and he is across the street from his target, and it's like him setting it up and going through the process, and you get to learn about like why he's doing this, why he thinks about this, why he is a killer, like his whole mental process to get into the mindset of what it takes to be, a hired assassin. And then all of a sudden he goes for the kill, shit goes crazy, and then the rest of the movie is him dealing with what just happened that went wrong and why it went wrong. And it's fantastic. Now, my only problem with this movie is the first 20 minutes are such a high that none of the rest of the movie lives up to how great that opening is. But again, I still love it. Michael Fassbender is one of my favorite actors. So when he's in stuff, I love it. And he's perfect in this movie. Obviously, Fincher directing it. Now, when it comes to the Rams, uh again, I made the case when we were talking Eagles Rams, where it's just this team is good. I think they're being tricked into people thinking they're great based on one game against a Vikings team we already saw get exposed by the Lions, and then the Rams came out and played that exact same game. The Lions didn't have the exact same success against a Vikings team where the blueprint was out on them. So the Rams, again, good team, I think, is being paraded around as a great team because people want to root against the Eagles, which again, I all the Eagles hate, I get because I carry that same amount of hate for the Chiefs. So I get it. I have no, again, 2025, let's embrace the year of the hater. People should hate things and people should love things. And I hate the Chiefs, and I get 100% why people hate the Eagles. I just don't care. No one
It's their
likes it.
fans, and it's because of you. It's that reason right there
Yeah, I'm fine with that. And you, Casino, your number 6 was the Rams.
with the flip flop.
Yeah. Why are the Rams number 6 on your list?
A lot has to do with coaching. I like Sean McVay a lot, a lot, a lot. And then you also have Matthew Stafford, and that duo has already won a Super Bowl, and they've got
That
some
is a
really
good point.
good, yeah, they've got some really good players on that team, and they know how to win. Um, are the other teams that are in front of them just stacked beyond reason? So that's why they're in front of the other two, and they're going to sit where they are because I don't think they have a legitimate shot of winning the Super Bowl by any means, especially with who's in front of them. But they are a great team. They have Sean McVay. They have a Super Bowl coach. They have a Super Bowl winning quarterback, and they've done it together. So who's to say that they can't do it again? I am, because those teams in front of them are too damn good.
And this is one of our flip flops because I have the Commanders at number 6 with another Netflix original movie. Netflix killed it this year with their original movies. And this is Hitman, starring Glenn Powell as a operative who is like a numbers guy, and this is like an action comedy. It's really good. It is about Glenn Powell is like a in the van kind of guy co- uh who helps people basically in his unit help with the arrest of people trying to have their significant other killed, other people killed. Basically, there I'm trying to not spoil this too much, but he works for an agency where people call and hire a hitman, and then his government official, his cop, his whatever, somebody working with law enforcement goes in pretending to be a hitman. The person then hands them over the money. That means they're serious about it. And then they get arrested, all that kind of stuff. So Glenn Powell's character gets sucked into this where now he is pretending to be the hitman when they need him as a last minute replacement. He goes in, he's great at it, so then he keeps doing that, getting more confident in it, and then all of a sudden he meets Adrian Ajorna, I believe that's her name. He meets her. She then basically they fall in love with each other. She thinks he's actually this hitman. He's kind
I
of
don't
living
need to
this
watch any of the movies now. Jeez, dude.
yeah. She thinks he's actually a hitman. They're like living this lie together, and then the whole thing of like she's supposed to be arrested for trying to hire a hitman. The company kind of finds out about it, specifically one guy, and it becomes this big snafu. You got to watch this one. This is the second movie on this list I probably watched the most this year. I think it's absolutely incredible, by Richard Linklater. Yeah, it's great. And for the Commanders,
I wonder if
basically,
there's gonna be any movie that I've seen.
probably not. Yeah. So basically, with the Commanders, I think this, much like the Hitman movie, this is kind of the Commanders being presented as a team they're not, even though they're trying to be. So they're trying to be the Lions, but I think. Again, they have a rookie quarterback. They don't have that much firepower. Their defense very shaky for most of the season, kind of like the Rams, where all of a sudden their defense has improved a lot over the last month and people are trying to act like this is who they've been the whole time. It hasn't been. And like Casino has said, this is a team that if one score games flip, all of a sudden they're not only missing the playoffs, they probably have a losing record. We see those teams every year where they are just unbelievably skilled, lucky, whatever you want to say, in one score games. And then
Chiefs.
those teams, yeah, never really do anything in the playoffs because, again, they're
That's why the
living or
Chiefs are gonna lose to the
dying.
Texans.
There you go. They're living or dying by the sword so thinly every week that eventually that shit catches up to you. Next up, Casino, your number 5 on the list. Whoop. And that is
Do you
the
just wanna say ours because it sounds like we're all the same the rest of the way out?
we are not.
Oh, I thought this was the 2 flip-flops. Alright, anyway.
No,
So,
no.
Baltimore Ravens, again, it's their secondary's gotten better. I just need to s I they gotta prove it to me.
Yeah, and on that note, oh no, I do not have the Ravens here, but we will obviously talk about the Ravens more when it gets to uh my fourth pick because the Ravens are fourth. But number 5 for me is the Buffalo Bills. And again, I am picking the Bills to beat the Ravens. The only reason I can't put the Bills above the Ravens is because the Ravens already blew out the Bills. So until I see the Ravens or until I see the Bills beat the Ravens, I can't put
No,
the
that's a good
Ravens
point.
ahead of the Bills.
No, that's a good
Yeah.
point. That's a great
Uh,
point.
and my number 5 pick for movie of the year, Casino, Dune Part 2.
I haven't watched the second part yet.
You know what? I'll tell you what, was not a fan really of the first Dune. I just was like, it's fine. And then Dune Part 2, I went in with very low expectations because I wasn't crazy about the first one, and I absolutely loved it. The
Nice.
scene, I don't think there is a more cinematic shot this entire year from all the movies I've seen than the uh who's that guy's name? why am I blanking on it? Timothy
Timothy
Chalamet.
Chalamet.
Yes, where he is first riding the sandworm and like he has to, to be basically these people's god, he has to ride the sandworm and all this kind of stuff. And then he ends up riding like the biggest one they've ever seen, which kind of like fulfills the prophecy and all that kind of stuff. One of the best scenes in any movie this year, the way it's shot, the way it's filmed. The ending is also kind of heartbreaking and really makes you go like, "Oh, I really want to see what happens next." And Austin Butler uh also just is like this really slick assassin guy in it. Dave Bautista I also thought was great. But yeah, I can't say enough good things about Dune 2. I've seen it literally 5 times this year. I like it more every time. But yeah, and then my number 4, I'll just move right to that because that's where we left off kind of on yours, Casino, is the Baltimore Ravens and the Fall Guy, which I'll talk
I've
about in
seen this one.
the Fall Guy's great.
It
But
was outstanding. It was really funny.
but for the Baltimore Ravens, again, their defense has improved, much like what I've said with the Commanders. I'm still worried when they play elite teams because, again, we've seen how that defense played for a good three-fourths of the season. But their defense came on the right time. Lamar Jackson, again, if they have to go into Buffalo and play in the snow, Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry are the perfect duo to do that. And then for the Fall Guy, Casino, my number 4th pick of the year, there are movies that are supposed to be summer blockbusters and giant hits, and the reason Hollywood blockbusters, summer blockbusters exist are for movies like The Fall Guy. You don't need to see any other things to enjoy The Fall Guy. You can have zero knowledge of the 80s TV show this movie was based on, which I did when I saw it, and still walk out of this movie not only pumped, but you're like feeling good. You're like, that was a great movie. Me and my son,
I've watched it 3 times.
yeah, I took my son to see this movie in theaters. He's 12 years old, still to this day says it's his favorite movie he's ever seen in theaters. In the movie, when it becomes the third act and Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt are doing their thing, my son jumped up in the seat in the theater and just started like clapping along to the movie itself. It's a crowd pleaser. It's great. Ryan Gosling is at the peak of his powers. And it's basically about this movie where this stunt double gets roped into like this murder mystery with the guy he's the stunt double of, where the producer of the movie is like, you know him better than anybody. Go find him and try to convince him to come back on this movie. Make sure he's not dead. Make sure he's not kidnapped. And then the movie kind of spirals out of control for them. But best needle drop in a movie, best song use in a movie this year is I Was Made for Loving You by Kiss in this song, which it's just fantastic. Great movie. Probably the best movie I've seen this year that I just keep like watching over and over. Not my favorite, but definitely the best. Next up, Casino. Your number 3 pick, uh, no, I'm sorry. We did the Ravens and we swapped the Ravens and Bills. So your take on why you're putting the Bills over the Ravens?
Because he's gonna win MVP. Sadly, I wish it was Lamar Jackson. But Buffalo and Josh Allen just seem like this is the year they want it more than ever. Josh Allen is so determined this year. You just see it in his confidence and just the way he presents himself that if I was the Chiefs and they've already lost to him once, this season, but that's the story. They beat him in the regular season and then the Chiefs win in the postseason. But just something looks different about Josh Allen specifically. Yes, the team is following Josh Allen in his footsteps, but Josh Allen just looks like he is a very different guy this year. And it's this year or no year kind of situation.
Yeah, and also for what was supposed to be a down year for this Bills team, quickly turned into where I think this might be the best Bills team that Josh Allen has had since he's been the quarterback of the Bills. And I really don't understand why. they don't have the best weapons they've ever had because obviously they had years where it was Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. Now they kind of only have what Knox, the tight end, and Amari Cooper that they got halfway through the season. This is by far the best running game they've had since the Josh Allen era, which obviously
Well,
takes
I mean,
weight
definitely
off.
helping having Cook on the team.
Yeah. And then also their defense has not been the best it's ever been, but it's still good enough. So that's why, again, much like you, I think this Bills team, again, they can beat the Ravens, and we've already seen them beat the Chiefs. So this Bills team is two very winnable games away from being in the Super Bowl. My number three, honestly, I think if I did this list again, I would switch my number three movie, Civil War, with Fall Guy, because talking about the Fall Guy makes me realize how much I love it. But my number three movie is Civil War, the A24 kind of their first attempt at not like an indie darling movie, but like kind of their blockbuster. Civil War is a movie that follows war photographers going through America that is in the middle of a civil war. And what makes this movie really genius in my eyes is that California and Texas have joined together in this movie and basically are fighting all the other states, and there's all these different factions and stuff like that. So, for people constantly, when it comes to movies, entertainment, video games, even sports to a lesser extent, constantly bitching about how politics and everything's political nowadays and all this kind of stuff, this movie got shit on so much for kind of putting the politics aside, even though it's called Civil War and it's a very political movie, and just saying the point of this movie is basically nobody wins in war. Like, war is pointless because everybody loses. And so, for them to make the really smart move of not being like it's red versus blue multiple times during this movie, the war photographers are being shot by people and then they team up with other people to shoot back at them, and like the conversation is like, what team are they on, whose side are they on, kind of thing. And then the people they're with are basically like, I don't know, but they're shooting at us, so we have to shoot back at them. It takes all politics and just kind of brushes it to the side in this really smart, ingenious way. And I think, again, much like where I talked about The Killer or The Fall Guy or Dune having these great sequences, the last 20 minutes of this movie is some of the most riveting stuff you're going to see, where the whole point of the movie is these photographers trying to get to the president. And the last 20 minutes is like the siege on Washington and the White House, and they're um, photographing it the whole time. It's
Oh, you're getting choked up.
I've ran out of Casino. Talk about your number three.
my,
I need to get
sorry,
something.
the show's coming to an end. I know because my daughter's getting restless and my son's waking up. So perfect. Shocking again. The Eagles. Saquon Barkley's just too good. He's barely missing out on the MVP. He probably should be the MVP, but it is a quarterback award. Saquon Barkley going for over 2,000 yards and being 100 yards shy of being the all-time. Sorry about that. And being over 2,000 yards and only 100 yards shy of being able to break that mark. This team is just so damn good. And you talked about it that Lamar Jackson, or not Lamar, Jalen Hurts doesn't have to be perfect. He just doesn't have to be perfect. I think the three teams that are up on that board right there, you got the Eagles, the Bills, and the Ravens. These teams have what they've been missing, and it is a running back for those teams. And because these quarterbacks have all done it on their legs as well. So finally getting it where they don't have to rely on all of their own legs is huge for these teams. And that's why I have all three of these teams very easily being able to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. So that I do. I know. Okay, again, so I see that, the Kansas City is not on this list so far, and they are on the other list, but it doesn't matter. But because these teams are so close to each other, I like the Eagles. Their defense is amazing. And I agree with you. I can see the Eagles beating any team coming out of the AFC. So the Eagles are great, but we'll see where that plays out. So they're going to stay right there.
Well, yeah, and that's why with my number 3, I only talked about the movie because I know we had the same number 3, which is the Eagles. So, the Eagles again, I've gave them enough praise this season, especially these playoffs. The number 1 best defense in the league in these playoffs without question. Their numbers are insane. They have, if the award didn't always have to go to a quarterback, they would potentially have the MVP of the league in Saquon Barkley. Again, 100 yards away from breaking the all-time rushing record. Again, I showed earlier in this show, if you're just listening to the clip, go watch the full show or just watch the clip where we talk about the Eagles-Rams game, which is just the Hurts, they win 11. They're 11-2 when Hurts throws the ball 35 times or more in a game since 2022. So they're actually, the way they play is the way they play. Not saying they can't, have a game where they're winning in a shootout or something like that. I think about last year where it was a shootout back and forth between the Buffalo Bills and the Eagles, where everybody and their brother was picking the Bills to upset the Eagles, and the Bills were on their way to the Super Bowl, and then the Eagles kind of go in there. Hurts puts on a show and blah, blah, blah. Again, his legs are really a uh, advantage when it comes to the playoffs, especially when they're playing like an overly aggressive defense, like we saw the Rams be against the Vikings. So I like I like, if not love, the Eagles offense. I
Sorry.
absolutely love the Eagles defense. Next up, Casino. Let's just move to your number 2, and that is, or no, I'm sorry. Let's move to my number 2, which is the Detroit Lions, and my second best movie of the year is The Wild Robot.
I wanted to watch this, but it was not available for on anything that I'm able to watch it on.
Yeah, I believe it is streaming on Peacock in, I think, next Wednesday, I want to say,
Then
the
I will
22nd.
that will definitely be on my list. I want to
Uh
watch it. It was a great book,
yes. So The Wild Robot
which I never read
again.
because I don't read books.
Well, you don't know how to read. But
Nah, that's a good callback to our group chat. That's funny.
but we so The Wild Robot, obviously both Casino and I have kids. My 4-year-old loves going to the movies, so anytime there's a kids movie out in theaters, I obviously always take him to it. My 12-year-old loves going to the movies, so when he was a kid I did the same thing. So I see basically every kids movie in theaters, right? I like going to the movies, they like going to the movies, blah blah blah. There are certain kids movies,
Like, this
obviously
is
this
not a
is
kid movie.
well, this is what Pixar became famous for, where it's like they make really great movies for kids that if you're an adult, there's deeper meanings to it. There's more emotion. You're seeing stuff more than just the cartoon characters and the bright colors and all that kind of stuff. So with The Wild Robot, we just rented this movie because I had to show my wife. My wife, when this movie ended, was uncontrollably crying for about 30 minutes. And I'm not even joking. She was just like holding our child and just like rocking him back and forth. It's a movie about parenthood. It's a movie about mothership. It's a movie about this robot that crash lands on this planet with all these animals. And she basically has to teach this little bird that like imprints on her, this little bird, how to like fly and migrate for the winter, but the bird's like the runt of the litter. And it's this really great story about like found family and like using your disadvantages that are to your advantage. And it's a great movie for kids, great message, but adults, I mean, I saw this movie again. Casino knows I cry at movies all the time. There is 50 minutes of this movie where I was just in tears. My wife, for an hour straight, was just bawling her eyes out. So, and with the Lions, Casino, they're my number 2 pick. Again, what can be said about them that hasn't been said? The only thing I worry about for the Lions and the Chiefs is, yes, they were given more time to prepare with great coordinators and their great head coaches, but we've seen in the past where teams are meeting we've seen in the past where the juggernauts are meeting teams that are kind of red hot at the moment and have the momentum going their way. There's no team in the league that has more momentum and more force behind them where they're, this snowball rolling down the hill getting bigger and bigger as it goes faster and faster than the Commanders. The Commanders are the hot team right now in the NFL, and that's my only concern for the Lions are they rested guys. Now again, I do like that their week 18 game meant a lot to them. Obviously, it meant the difference between the 1 seed and the 5 seed. So they've only been resting people for a week, but
Yeah.
sometimes when you see the team that's the buzzsaw hottest team at the moment and you're the team that had a week off, you can't match that intensity.
Right. And there you go. And that's why the Texans are going to beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs had 2 weeks off.
I mean, that's very true. But still, that being said, Lions, potentially the best offense in the league. Their defense, honestly, like by all metrics, are the worst defense of any team still left in the playoffs.
But they've
They're
gotten better because they've gotten some pieces back.
That's true. And they are going to have confidence for the way they played that Vikings game. So, again, if Commanders beat the Lions, I think the world will be shook. But I think the Lions have been waiting a full year to get back into the playoffs to avenge what happened last year. So, my number or
Where
your number one
what
casino.
happened last year where Dan Campbell's balls got too big?
Yeah, pretty much. Your number 2 team casino is the Kansas City Chiefs.
It is. And again, I think it has to do with they've had a lot of time off, and going into the playoffs, they've struggled with teams. And yes, I know they're good teams win. That's a motto I live by is good teams find ways to win. But with that being said, the Eagles, I think, can beat them. I mean, I have them above the Eagles. I have them above the Bills, and the Ravens. However, I can see all three of those teams being able to beat this team. I have the Texans being able to beat this team. I have everybody that's left in this top 8, the 7 teams that are opposing the Chiefs. I can see beating the Chiefs.
But you know what? The Chiefs are number 1 because they won't beat them. And we'll just be like, why? How? And then they'll just win every game by 3 points, never look impressive, and then they'll just be three-peating and no one will be shocked, but yet everybody will be shocked because you and I and everybody else has picked
Okay,
against them in
but
every
they have
team.
not played the Eagles yet.
That's
They
true.
lost to the
Well,
Bills already.
my Super Bowl is Eagles Chiefs. I still think that happens.
No.
It's
And
going to happen. It's going to happen.
No. Nope. It's gonna be Lions, Ravens, like I called.
Well, on that note, your number 1 team casino, as I just talked about him, is the Lions. So why do you think the Lions right now are the best team in this playoffs?
Because their defense is getting some pieces back, and this team is just fearless. They are fearless. You just said it. They want to revenge for what happened last year. Dan Campbell is still being aggressive, but it also feels like they're being smart about it. They've figured out some plays to be able to be this aggressive. Mainly, it's the one play where you have pretty much Gibbs run right down the gut, and they throw it over the top. Anyway, that being said, this team is built right. And with the coaching, I like the coaching and I like the game management from all of their coaches that I think with how much this team cares and wants to win for each other more than anything makes them dangerous. Just makes them dangerous. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The Chiefs
Uh,
are going to win the whole thing.
well, and that's why my number 1 pick, my favorite movie of the year, my best movie of the year, as Casino is upset that realization that the Chiefs will win. But my number 1 team of these playoffs and who I think is going to the Super Bowl. I don't think they're three-peating because I think they lose to the Eagles in the Super Bowl. But right now, I have the Kansas City Chiefs as the number 1 team in these playoffs. Obviously, they're 15-2, probably 16-1 if they actually tried to win that Broncos game. Didn't even need to
This
worry
is your
about it.
favorite movie of the year?
The best movie I've seen all year is Luca Guadagnino's
Where Zendaya is
Challengers.
trying to have a threesome.
So that again, so this movie is unbelievable. This is a movie when I first saw the trailer for it, I was like, okay. But I then watched it with my wife. I was not only on the edge of my seat throughout most of the movie, I just threw my hands up and I turned to my wife and I was like, this is a really good movie. There are certain parts and things in this movie where the premise
Is
of this
Zendaya just an
movie
amazing actress to you?
I'm actually not a big Zendaya fan, but I actually think in this movie it's like
It's
a perfect role for her.
Zendaya.
Zendaya, whatever. I'm actually not
Well,
her
it's
I'm not a big
AYA,
fan.
so Zendaya. Yeah.
Zendaya, whatever.
There's no
But
I, buddy.
the movie is about Zendaya, where she is like one of the best tennis players in the world, and then she has an injury that makes it so she can't play tennis anymore. So she at a
Tennis
tennis
elbow.
tournament, no, she like tears something in her leg.
Hmm.
So in the movie, she meets these two guys who are like best friends, and both of them are trying to get with Zendaya, but then they're also like weirdly attracted to each other. So then it's like the uh she becomes the main focus of their attraction to each other and their competitiveness, and the finale of the movie that's kind of weaved throughout the movie in different segments is one of the guys is like this tennis pro who kind of like let his life fall apart, and he's just like really good at tennis but kind of doesn't give a shit about it really, so he's just like doing tennis tournaments on the weekends at like country clubs and all this kind of stuff. And the other guy is like a pro tennis player that has lost his mojo and is playing this weekend tournament to kind of get his flow back and to go into one of the big tennis tournaments on like a high note and to win by just crushing all this lesser talent. So these two, and they were friends years ago where they were both trying to get with Zendaya and they did. And then it comes back like 20 years later where they're all at this tennis tournament together, and it just becomes this like love triangle thing that is fucking incredible. And then the score, the
She can't play
music,
tennis anymore, but she sure can play them.
that's kind of, I mean, that should be the tagline of the movie. The score, the beat, the music in this movie gets you so pumped up. The way the tennis scenes are shot in this movie are shot in a way where when you saw Raging Bull and how Scorsese shot all the boxing scenes, you're like, how
Hey,
has nobody
that is my
ever.
favorite boxing movie of all time.
Yeah, so in that boxing movie where you're watching the boxing scenes, you're like, "Wow, how has nobody thought to shoot a boxing match like this where the camera's going through the ropes and all that kind of stuff?" That is how Challengers is with it with the tennis, where you're like, "How has nobody thought to shoot a tennis match like this?" It's engaging, it's different, it really puts you in the match. And then the three actors in this one, Zendaya, Josh O'Connor, and Mike Feist are just all phenomenal. And this is the best movie I've seen this year. Nothing came close to it. I watched it all the way back in February, and
Well,
I'm
you know what?
sorry,
I will
in July or whatever. But
I
it's
will take your word for
fantastic.
this because the last time you and I saw a movie together in theaters actually was a tennis movie.
Oh, that's true. We what was the name of that one?
I
Battle
don't
of the
know.
Sexes or something
Battle of
like
the
that.
Sexes. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was with Emma Stone and
Steve Carell,
Steve Carell. It's
which
really
also a
good.
good movie.
It was
Yeah,
about Billie Jean King. Really good, really good.
yeah.
That was outstanding. Yeah, you and I went on a date. We were in. It was really great. We were in Malibu
That's
watching.
true.
We were in Malibu watching this movie together, which was
we
phenomenal.
were uh, we were there for our friend's wedding and we had time to kill and we're just like, let's
No,
go
we
see
didn't even
this
have time.
movie.
We didn't even have time to kill. You and I stayed extra days
Oh,
just
that's right.
because we wanted to hang out, and we went to. I mean, sadly, all that's probably gone. To be honest, to think about it, which is sad.
Yeah.
But you and I had a great time. I don't know what my daughter's doing. We were, yeah, we went to the movies. We had the jacuzzi going. That was fun.
It was a very
We were
romantic
watching we
weekend.
were listening to the Knights game while we were in the jacuzzi, which was outstanding. It was a good day. We went to Bubba Gum Shrimp Company. We sat on the beach together.
If
Uh,
we had
and
if we had our own Zendaya, we could have recreated Challengers that weekend casino, but instead it was just us.
that was
But
great. That was a
also,
great weekend.
we should do that again. And this time maybe get lucky. Who
I
knows?
think my
If
favorite part of
the
that
cards
entire
play right.
weekend my favorite part of that entire weekend, though, is when we were getting ready for the wedding, and then the 3 groomsmen and the 3 groomsmen and the groom were all just playing South Park on the Xbox while we're getting ready. We're just taking
A
turns.
fractured butthole. That game's great. But
Uh,
on that note, Casino, this has been the Only Sports Podcast Power Rankings, movie edition. Also, R.I.P. David Lynch, who passed away today, one of the best of all time. I love his movies. I love him. I love his voice, how he talked, how he viewed life. So R.I.P. David Lynch.